With needles in hand, we spin through the air, knitting threads of love with utmost care. Colors and patterns in a dance they twirl, weaving wands warm the world.
Howdy y'all, and welcome to Dakota Daydreams. I'm Dakota, and today I'll be sharing Weaving Wands, episode 5. Let's check it out. While exploring Ravelry, I've discovered a lot of charity groups that help crafters find places to send the things they make, and some of them sent out welcome messages. And while I was talking to Miss Sue, who runs Salvation Knitters Charity Knitting, um, we started talking about the 50-gram skeins of red heart that I have, and how you can make a lot of baby stuff with 50 grams, and I kind of posed myself a challenge, and she lightly endorsed the challenge to see how much baby stuff I could make out of red heart skeins, and then box it up and send it when I'm done making stuff. Which left me thinking, well, what would the perfect patterns be? And I see that they have a mother and baby home or place or whatever that helps moms and babies get established after they've had a baby. So what would be the perfect pattern? And while looking, I came across the magic hat. And the magic hat is named so because the lady who developed the pattern, which I will link down below in the description, made the 1 to 2 year size for her baby, and it also fits her if she just flips the brim down and covers her ears. So I figured that would probably be the perfect pattern because it will either fit the kid for a really, really long time or could be usable for one of the moms, which just left me to try and pick colors. So thank you again, Miss Starla DJ, for the Red Heart Craft Kits, because I went through those and picked every color that felt like a baby color to me. And I ended up with the oatmeal, pale yellow, light pink, light blue, uh, light purple, but I don't remember what the label called it, and I seem to have lost the label for that one while I was rolling all of them up. Bright white, day glow, because I thought that one just looks so fun, and I love variegated bright colors for making things for little kids, because bright colors, visibility, it's just all around a win-win. The coral, which I think it's supposed to be a pink tinted orange, but with all of the bright colors, it looks like a baby orange to me. So, and the color reminds me of a style of teddy bear onesie I've seen before, and it's about the same color as one of the shades they make those in. And then a minty. And I think I'm going to make the first thing off of each of them, one of the magic hats. But I think I'm gonna make the white into a brim for the day glow hat. And that might take me a minute, because I like to start a bunch of projects at one time and then have them to work on for a little bit. But that's okay, because as long as there's some thread moving across the needles bit by bit, it makes a difference. So I've got my 5mm double pointed needles. And most hats are going to be on double pointed needles if you're not using like a loom of some sort. And when setting up double pointed needles, it's very, very important and a little bit difficult to make sure that the thread does not twist between the needles and that you don't drop any stitches. Now, one thing I try to do to help with that is keep about 20 stitches, give or take, per needle, and then I'll start casting on to the next one just to kind of prevent stitch buildup and fall off from one needle. But another thing you could do is put a needle cap on the end of your cast off needle just to keep them, or cast on needle, just to keep them from falling off the other end. Excuse me. And that's just a couple of things. But as long as it doesn't twist and you can keep them all laid out straight, you're usually good with a double pointed startup. Give me just 1 second to straighten these out. One thing that can help when the thread wants to be twisty before you bring it around is to lay all of the needles out straight. And then when you bring it around, make sure that the thread is facing inward. That's just what tends to help me. And then place a marker before you join it, just to help keep track of where the beginning is. For example, the brim of the magic hat uses double ribbing, kind of like the cowls I was making. And placing the marker helps me know when I get back around to the beginning, I've gotten a stitch count off, or um, if I've just misstitched at some point, so you know where the beginning is and then where you should be in the pattern based on the beginning. And it seems like I already had stitches that were dropping off in between the needles, so I'm gonna frog it and restart with the needle caps on the other end of the DPNs, or double pointed needles, just to keep any of them from falling off and just only have the working ends uncapped at a time and see how that goes. So far, having the needle caps on the ends when I'm not actively using that one has helped. Now I have about 20 stitches on each needle, except the last one, which just has the amount over 20. Which I did count, but I don't remember now. Um, and what I'm gonna try to do is bring it around onto the 5th needle instead of trying to work them all on to the next one, just to help keep the spacing as I go through the rows. And I'm gonna see how that does. So far, that has helped a lot. I've already made it past the point I frogged it at and into basically fresh thread. So what I think I'm gonna do now is cap all of these and start a couple other things to work on and share some other exciting news with y'all real quick. I've got a yarn craft order and I'm really excited because it's come from my partner, because I started talking about wanting to try and build up some yarn and make things to take to there's like a maker's market that happens not too far from me. And I could get a table there and sell some things, make a little bit of money, get some more yarn, craft for charity. Sounds like a great plan to me. And then my partner was like, but you could also make things for orders and whatnot. It's like, I've done that before, but it's been a while. So my partner placed an order to help me figure out what my prices would be, how much time it takes to make certain things. And we've given it a due date of sometime in August to be done by. And I've got a set of 10 washcloths to do in some sort of floral patterns, 5 placemats, my choice of pattern, 5 pot holders in a variety of sizes, and a shawl. Now, I'm most excited about the shawl because it uses a new yarn that I haven't worked with before. The Bernay blanket and baby blanket type yarns. And because I haven't worked with it before, and my partner was asking for a cowl at some point while I was working on them, and they had one in the color on sale, I grabbed a ball of the Bernay baby blanket or Bernay blanket, I don't remember, again lost the label, but one of the two, in black, and I'm gonna start trying to make a cowl out of it just to practice with the new type of yarn, because it's a really, fluffy kind. Now, the cowl isn't technically part of the order, but I am gonna try to do it first, like, before I do the shawl, just because it's the same type of yarn, and it's a type of yarn I haven't worked with before, so I wanna have a little bit of experience with it before I'm trying to make an entire shawl out of it. So, with this cowl, I'm gonna do probably 4 different sections and have a different stitch pattern in each of them after I do, like, the bottom ribbing or top ribbing. I'm not sure. Depends on which side gets used which way, I guess. They're kind of reversible that way. Either way. And I think I'm just gonna stick to a double ribbing for the top and bottom for that reason. But I think with how bulky it is, about 48 stitches should do it, so sections of 12 all the way around. And just see how this yarn takes to different patterns. The challenge being that I'm using black as the pilot yarn color, and it's notorious for being one of the hardest colors to see, because already just trying to cast it on, the colors are kind of fading together a bit. So I'm gonna have to make sure to work on this with bright light so I don't strain my eyes. Also, don't forget to have the beginning marker be either a different color or distinguishable in some way from the other section markers when you're trying to use multiple markers at the same time. I've already made this mistake once trying to make this cowl because I just grabbed 4 random ones not thinking about that and ended up getting tripped up, but I had to frog that one anyways because I had initially tried with 10mm needles, which were way too big because I'm not used to working with bulky yarns, and I am now trying it on 8mm needles. I believe this yarn was marked 5, but I don't really know. It's quite a bit chunkier than the last 5 weight I worked with as well. And I've noticed that sometimes when just starting the ripping on cowls, it can help to have, like, pulled a little bit of the cable through some of the yarn, just until the ribbing pattern starts to get established and it can stretch itself a little bit better across the cable. Which usually only takes the first few rows, but it only took 2 or 3 with how bulky this yarn is. But it's already showing how it blends together super well in the black, and I'm kind of wanting to start a couple more projects while I'm feeling like starting stuff today, because, like I said earlier, I usually don't feel like starting a whole bunch of different things at one time, so when I do, I try to fill my project bag up. so I can work it down until the next time I feel like starting more things. And since my partner's already picked up the yarn for the shawl and the placemats and the washcloths, I think I'll start the placemats. And because it's quite a bit and it's been quite a while since I've tried to make a set, I think I'm going to keep it simple for the placemat pattern and use the Simple Slip Stitch placemat by Jennifer M. Edwards. Again, link will be down below in the description. And honestly, it did take me a minute to figure out the pattern because it is written to flip, and I don't know why, but I can't figure out flipping the knitting, but I did figure it out, and it is so fun. So I'm definitely going to be working on this one quite a bit for a minute because it's just really fun to zip back and forth on once you've got the hang of it in your knitting style. So it is a very fun pattern, and it's time to check how long it is. So I'm going to measure it, and I'm going to make sure to be careful to put it online with the 0 on my current row, and then see how long it is. And with slip stitch patterns, I try to measure along one specific slip stitch somewhere in the middle, just to try and get the most accurate measurement of length and make sure that I haven't like gone too long. The pattern does recommend a specific row count, but I didn't want to use a row counter, honestly. I wanted to go by length because I wanted to do it just a little bit longer than the recommended length. Now, so far I'm aware of two types of slip stitch. Row end slip stitches, where you take the first stitch on the new row and just pass it to the needle, and then knit the next stitches normally. And then a mid-row slip stitch, where you knit along to your slip stitch and then just skip it, pass it like you did the first one, and keep going. And then when you're coming back through, this one's always knit the same direction relevant to the front, no matter which row you're on. It's either slipped or knit. And that gives it this effect of being raised up from the rest of it through the pattern. And that's one thing that's really cool about a slip stitch and can make a lot of patterns just add another twist to them, and it's really easy to work in and start adapting patterns. And it's one of the first stitches I actually managed to teach myself before I learned how to cable. And I think it's a really cool stitch to just practice a few times over before I pick up a more complicated vining pattern. And also it adds a good bit of texture to the design without making it too bumpy to use this side as the front, but also grippy enough that if someone wanted to use the side as the bottom, that it would add a little bit of traction and keep it from sliding. And then some patterns specify that in the cast off, you should continue to knit and purl in the same places in the cast off row. So I've tried to do that, and I've concluded that sometimes it would probably be a lot easier if you just flip it and make it to where you're knitting on the correct part each time, because that's always an option. You could just flip it and do whichever stitch is the most comfortable. If it says purl, flip it and knit. If it says knit, flip it and purl. For some reason, though, my brain just will not continue to process the act of knitting if I flip it and can't see the front of it. I don't know why, but especially trying to watch this back in editing, I do think it would be easier to flip on the cast off for this one at least. And I might try that on the next one and see how that goes. And now that I have one of them finished, I want to take a measurement before I wash it, and then I'm going to take another one after I wash it. Because no, two handmade items aren't going to be identical, but two handmade items in a set, I do try to match as closely as I can, at least to each other. And it looks like the finished length of this one is about 17.5 across and about 14 long along one of the slip stitch strips. But if I have it on one of the garters, it looks like it's shorter. And that's just because the garter stitch kind of scrunches up. It keeps it shaped, I guess is a good word, to one rectangle along that. And I feel like that's going to be good over time to keep it from stretching out of shape while also kind of allowing it to relax and get a little bit larger over time as well. And another thank you to My Cats Love Yarn for this measuring tape because it's retractable. It has a button on the side and it just shloop up the tape, so I don't have to roll it by hand anymore. So this is now my favorite measuring tape by far. And then because I haven't made something this size with this type of yarn before, I'm gonna leave the tail a little bit longer than I normally would, and maybe take a little bit more caution on the knots than I normally would, just to give myself a little bit more to work with if it happens to come undone in the wash. And that's just a thing I do when I'm working with different materials or vastly different shapes or sizes or both. Because it's been a while since I've worked with cotton a lot, and I'm really happy to right now. And I don't think I've made anything quite this size with it in a very long time. It's been a bit since I've done more than washcloths with it. So, longer tail just in case. Because it's easier to snip it than it is to try and work in more if there is some kind of fray or unraveling. And I also haven't done that type of cast off in a couple years, so just in case. Um, and I think aside from that, it should be okay. I'm just putting a double knot in because I really like to use caution with the string, I think. Which means I'm at 1 out of 5 done for my partner's yarn order, which I feel really good about because it's not due to be done until August, but I would like to have it done much earlier than that because anything I can make off of yarn orders, I can put towards many other things, among them being shipping donations, getting more yarn, etc. And I'm excited about that. So excited, in fact, that I forgot to mention what kind of yarn this was or even show the labels like I wanted to, and I've fully lost the labels by now. But this one was the same brand as the psychedelic yarn that I had for the washcloths, and I'm pretty sure it was like peaches and cream. It's the 100% cotton yarn that's at the Walmart. That's what I know. And I really like it. I got a cone of it, or my partner did, for the placemats. Um, And I just like cotton for that kind of thing because it's washable, it's absorbent, and it's just very utilitarian for like household goods, you know? Now, this placemat has come through the wash beautifully, and I think it's going to be pretty easy to keep them matched up because it hasn't really changed size. Like, I haven't taken the measuring tape to it since it came out, but relevant to the table, staying the same size, and the knots have held up really well. So now all I have to do is trim the tails on the first one and finish the next four, and I've got the placemats done. And since I finished it, I've been working on the tween shawl just a little bit more, and I've started thinking about it. And I think this design may be good for certain things, but I don't think it's going to be the final design. I think it's going to be a prototype because I'm not a huge fan of the transition from garter stitch to the ribbing throughout it because it gets a little bit chaotic on some rows. So I think I'm going to tweak that design just a little bit before I try to make a full pattern. But I do want to finish out this prototype probably with the rest of this ball of yarn just to see if this specific design is maybe good at something the final design isn't. But I do think I may be starting either the pink purple variegated or the blue variegated pretty soon to try a different design for it. And both of them will probably end up being tween shawls as well. And this morning, I woke up to a message from my friend Natasha from Ravelry that she started her own channel for sharing her crochet journey. And let's go check her out and show her some support as well, because sharing a crafting journey is something that's not only very, very fun to do, but also very healing, because so much of us goes into our crafts, and being able to let someone see all of the thought and ideas that we put into it is just healing, you know? Thank you for dreaming with me. Check out my description for links to full versions of the songs on the beginning and end of my videos, and also links to other people in the crafts. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep your head in the clouds.
Scarves and mittens born from string, they hold the warmth of songs we sing. Through the yarn, life stories are pearled, crafting magic to heal the world. Wrap them tight.